the intersections of deeply rooted racial, cultural, and political divides. It was through the timely and robust dialogue that we were able to transform contestants into stakeholders. And dialogue was fundamental to achieving that in the legacy of Madiba to South Africa's transition from apartheid to democracy. He based his entire life on the principle of dialogue and the art of listening and speaking to others. It is also the art of getting others to listen and speak to each other. His legacy has created the opportunity for our nation and many other people across the world to achieve a common future. The dialogue this morning will no doubt provide a rich opportunity for all of us as key stakeholders in the building of peace and democracy to engage on what is an extremely relevant and important issue currently, that is the role of gender equality in the building of social cohesion. South Africa's transition not only brought about an end to formal apartheid, it was also a watershed in terms of the recognition of the key human rights like gender equality, which were and are paramount in building a united citizenry and nation. If we were to build an empowered, fair, and inclusive citizenry and establish one national identity through social justice and fairness and equity in terms of access to and participation in the political, socio-economic, and cultural aspects of our society, these values are an absolute necessity. Around the globe, gender equality has made huge strides over the last few decades. This includes South Africa. However, we still suffer from some very strong and outdated attitudes towards differences in genders and the rights of men and women. Levels of gender-based violence are still unacceptably high in South Africa. The statistics speak for themselves, and what is needed is a program of prevention that drives awareness and education together with the mobilization and participation of civil society to address this challenge and to change behavior drastically. Inequalities in terms of employment, education, and opportunity are experienced every day by many citizens across our country. Action needs to be taken, and action needs to be constant, and it should be understood that gender equality will not be achieved by a one-size-fits-all solution. We have to actively and substantially transform the daily lives of South African women. Ultimately, it is about having the same rights and access to economic freedom as men equally. Madiba said it best. The cause of women's emancipation is part of our national struggle against outdated practices and prejudices. It is a struggle that demands equal effort from both men and women alike. And that is the challenge we face, and we are looking forward to exploring various aspects of this challenge with our panelists this morning. I invite you to enjoy this event, and that promises to give us a lot to take away from to change the qualities of our lives. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Ndebele, for so eloquently setting the scene for us and some of the issues that we're going to tease out and explore with my panelists. And of course, we welcome your input as well, because this is a joint conversation. It's a conversation amongst South Africans. Professor Ndebele said it's about listening and hearing and speaking. And let's hopefully get some ideas out of this particular discussion as to how we take our country forward when it comes to building social cohesion, but with particular reference to the issue of gender equality in our country. Let me introduce my panelists this afternoon. You've already heard a little bit about them. Of course, they're fully displayed here in front of you in all their glory. To my immediate right is Dr. Mo Ibrahim. He's the chairperson of the Mo Ibrahim Foundation, of course a philanthropist and entrepreneur as well. As I said, he delivered the 11th Nelson Mandela Lecture yesterday. And the work of the Mo Ibrahim Foundation, as you know, has focused on Africa's empowerment with a particular focus on leadership and good governance on the continent. So a warm welcome to Dr. Mo Ibrahim. A round of applause for him, please. Seated next to him is Feral Haffajee. She is the editor-in-chief of the City Press newspaper. Of course, now the most widely cited, most widely sourced newspaper, and one of the biggest Sunday reads in the country, and Feral Haffajee taking up that role a few years ago after having, prior to that, been the first female editor-in-chief of the Mail and Guardian newspaper. A warm welcome to Feral Haffajee. Thank you. Next to her, we have Aisha Mohammed. She is the station manager of the radio station called 5FM, of course, with a wide appeal in South Africa, particularly amongst the younger audiences. And she's the first woman to hold that particular position at 5FM. So a very warm welcome to Aisha here as well. Our fourth panelist is Kave Bolambo. She is the founder and head of Women Across Borders, an organization which has been doing phenomenal work throughout the continent in terms of supporting women. She, in her own right, her own history is a very interesting and colorful one that, should you have the time, you should speak to her about having been a refugee in many parts of the continent. But she has built her life up and is doing phenomenal things for women across the continent and has been internationally recognized for her work as well. A warm welcome to Kave Bolambo. Just to tell you a bit about how we're going to build our conversation, we're going to allow our speakers to give about 5 minutes or so of their thoughts as far as it relates to their particular work and areas when it comes to gender equality and how we should be working to as a key element in order to have social cohesion. So first up, I'm going to call Dr. Mo Ibrahim, but I'm going to pick up, Dr. Ibrahim, about something you said yesterday about women being the pillar of Africa's economy. But to what extent and how are we going to make that meaningful and to be seen amongst all African women? Your opening question.
Yeah, thank you very much. As I said yesterday, agriculture really is a main activity in Africa. 70% of African people living on the land and off the land. And agriculture is an activity carried out by women. It's not by men. So women do the main economic activity in Africa. Then they do family, then they do kids, then they do schools, then they do cooking, then they do other things as well. And sometimes you wonder what actually men do. And they dance very well. Sometimes they rape women. And really, I mean, the disparity between the women and men's situation in Africa is really amazing. Now, we have a lot of things holding us. A lot of it, to be honest, are also cultural. And I love our roots. I'm a Nubian. Nubian is one of the oldest races in Africa. We're the first people to build pyramids in the world, before the Egyptians, actually. And I'm very proud of that. But it doesn't mean that I don't look back at my culture and my tribal roots critically. Not everything Nubian is right. And that's what people also need to address. Not everything Zulu is fantastic. Not everything. It doesn't mix our pride in being African and our pride in our roots with adopting all what is terrible and bad in our practices. We need to purge it. And that is the way to maintain this identity taken forward. Otherwise, it will not survive. This is an intelligent way to maintain really our culture. And we need to have the courage to do that, because I believe a lot of our problems come from really this cultural inheritance, which put men above women. And I think also there is an economic reason for that. We come from a history where a man was a provider and a woman was the kept and fed to reproduce, etc. And that has changed. Actually, women become really very much involved, if not the main producer. And I was talking with two distinguished South African academics here last night, just to confirm what we see from elsewhere. Women now are much more academically successful than men. And in our foundation, for example, we offer a number of fellowships and scholarships and stuff like that. And the most prestigious fellowships we have, which is in 1 year internship with to work with Pascal Lamy office in World Trade Organization, to be mentored by the president, to be mentored by Kabruka, the president of the African Development Bank, the head of UNECA, etc. $100,000 a year for really successful people. And for 3 years, we have 9 winners, and all of them are women. When we perceived and we started that fellowship, we thought of saying a condition here, it has minimum, women should be at least 30 or 40% of the candidates. And some people on the board said, well, is that necessary? Let us see. Now we're thinking to say men should be at least 30% of the candidates, because those guys did not win one. We received 3,000 applications, 4,000 applications. I talked with a prof yesterday, the vice chancellor of Cape Town University, and with the vice chancellor of the University of South Africa here. And I asked them, what is the situation here? And they said, oh, women. The best academics we have are women. The best performance in all schools are women. I think that in itself is going to change the landscape. When tomorrow, most of the professional successful people are going to be women, not men. It's very interesting to watch the role reserves. When you guys become the providers, how that will affect the relationship? Are you going to marry 5 men or 6, men like our men do now, or what? I don't know. But I really look forward for that new world, which only you can define. I stop here to.
Yes, thank you. A fantastic input from Dr. Ibrahim, raising many, many issues in there, Farrell, which hopefully you'll try and speak to, particularly some of the issues he raised about cultural practices holding us back. And I'd also like you to speak to the issue of the quotas that we have. South Africa is being praised for having a good representation of women, particularly in leadership positions in parliament and in government, yet in the corporate sector that was still lacking. If you could speak to some of that. Thanks. Sure. Farrell Hafstein.
Sorry, no.
It's her turn.
I'm sorry.
It's fine.
A man again.
A man again. So good morning. And may I first say absolutely no protocol observed, because I think one of the things that impacts on our social cohesion is the way that we've built these false divisions between us into VIPs, VVIPs, VVVIPs, I found out now. And in fact, all we are is, thank you, are South African men and women trying to build a better society. So thank you for that freedom of speech, MMC. One of the things I really loved that Mr. Ibrahim said yesterday in his lecture was the generational shift. He noticed that President Obama was 47 years old when he became president, that Bill Clinton had been 46 when he became president. And I think that really needs to happen here. So in addition to quotas, we need this generational shift desperately if we're going to make our continent jump ahead and succeed. So I'm a journalist. There's going to be some pictures up, I think, but maybe not. So my job is to put my nose in other people's business. Sometimes this can get us into some trouble, like when you cover a spending of over 200 million rand on a presidential estate. When you uncover truths that people would rather you didn't know. But being a journalist also means being a partner of democracy and of the potential and of writing about good people, like people who've kept up a vigil of love over our most precious cargo, and I think we all owe Ms. Michelle a great debt of gratitude for that. So for young people, I really wanted to speak this morning about your worlds and about your personal worlds and how you can use that to build social cohesion and to make our country a better place. So I guess everyone here is on Twitter, yeah? Facebook, maybe WhatsApp? I guess so. Okay, good. So I think that Twitter has done an amazing thing. It's made our worlds that much smaller, and it's made the ability for solidarity that much higher. So how did I know about Anine Boyson, the young woman who was raped? She was about 18 years old. She was raped and murdered earlier this year. For the first time ever, we sat up and we took notice about it. I first heard about it on Twitter. How do I know in the past week about the harassment of the women in Egypt by the men of the Muslim Brotherhood? It's because I know about it through Twitter and Facebook. So those are the goods of technology. They can make our worlds that much smaller, and they can make us act in unity with each other so much. But what are the bads? It brings us into an era of trolls, and it also is the era of selfies. Who of you have ever taken a picture of yourself with your cell phone? No admissions about that. I guess it does show that we're very much the me generation. And that's very hard when we're trying to build social cohesion and we're trying to build unity and we're trying to build solidarity. So I think sometimes hold that mirror outward and see what it says then. So one day, some 20 years from now, you young women, you're going to be statespeople. Hopefully you're going to be philanthropists giving away a lot of your money. You're going to be future presidents, etc. I thought I might just very quickly take you through what your Facebook status updates would look like then. Eh? So what might it say? Will you have a happy, warm family? But I hope that it won't all be about you. I hope that it will be about how you've impacted on other people. And then what about status? The status update. What will that look like? Will you have lived significant lives? And then what about our abilities to like? You know, we always say on Facebook, what is it that you like, or what is it that you don't like? I hope that you would have dealt a real death blow to inequality. I hope that you were the generation who will have ended sexual violence, because I do think it's going to take the next generation to do that. And then when it comes to sharing, I hope that you're going to share more than just selfies, that we all will become part of the drive toward philanthropy, towards giving away at least 10 to 50% of what it is that we earn. So I thought I might just take you there into your worlds, but to very quickly answer your question, Nick, is I think that quotas have made South Africa one of the top places in the world for women empowerment, for women in power. But I think that the outcome of that is very, very mixed. That we haven't been able to make a greater dent in our rape culture, I think speaks to some of the failures. That our corporate sector doesn't at all look like our public sector speaks to some of that failure. But I think it's obviously of great, great pride when you see women like, for example, Lindiwe Sisulu, like Mampela Rampela, who so clearly wants to be president of our country, like the Premier of the Western Cape, Helen Zille, like the Public Service Minister, Lindiwe Sisulu, the Public Protector, Thuli Madonsela, really showing us how you can use your role with great effect and with great impact and with great power. Thank you.
Vera, thank you so much for your time. Actually, I think it's fitting that we should pick up with you when we talk about the youth and what they aspire to and what are going to be their key priorities, what are going to be the issues that they're going to be pushing for in the new South Africa.
Yeah, thank you, Mekiwe. I think Ferrell has definitely touched on a lot of key issues, and I think the issue of the selfies on social media versus like outwardly focused instead of inwardly focused is a big, big issue, and I think that that's very, very relevant. For me, my personal view is that social cohesion is about the decisions we make in our daily lives, and this in turn has a knock-on effect throughout society. So our response to the various challenges we face are largely defined by the level of social cohesion in our country enjoys. I feel it's important that we understand social cohesion as something that we can practice in our daily lives. It's about the large and small decisions that we make every single day. As the head of a youth-orientated national radio station like 5FM, it becomes important for me to ask the relevant questions around social cohesion in terms of our audience and the youth of our country. Are we respectful of their diversity? Are we affording them access to information, insight, and entertainment as they require? Are we treating them with the values that we wish to represent? Respect, empathy, integrity, and are we delivering well-informed content on a topic of discussion that represents all angles to ensure our audience is able to make their own informed decisions? I think that what I'm trying to say there is that we are living in a world where we have social media and we have a lot of digital technology and we have a lot of information coming our way, but I think it's important for us to have the access so that we can make our own informed decisions as opposed to swallowing what it is that is of public interest. Do we engage with a view to encouraging and playing an active role in promoting awareness and fostering gender equality in the media? Do we promote, through appropriate institutions and organizations, awareness-raising campaigns and the exchange of good practice on combating gender stereotypes and the advancement of the realistic and non-discriminatory portrayal of women and men in the media? We accept that fair gender portrayal in the media should be a professional and ethical aspiration, similar to respect for accuracy, fairness, and honesty. The level of participation and influence of women in the media also has implications of media content. I think around the globe, gender equality has made huge strides over the last few decades. This includes South Africa and our democracy that promotes the equality of all. We do, however, suffer from some very strong and outdated attitudes towards differences in genders and the rights of men and women. Culturally, the status quo remains relatively unchanged. And unless the mindset behind gender discriminatory practices is challenged, nothing much is going to change. Education plays a key role and is a major factor. Without good education, women will achieve very little. Even with women taking up prominent roles in society, outdated perceptions of male or female roles remain. Research has shown us that women's presence in leadership does not on its own result in gender equality in a country. I believe strongly that in a workplace, gender equality will not be achieved by a one-size-fits-all solution. The gender equity issues in the corporate world will be different from other social realms. Within the corporate world, corporate cultural willingness to accommodate gender equity will differ according to the sector, status, or positions of individuals. I think it's important, however, that we consider this idea for a moment. Does singling women out make them gender equal or make them gender separate? I still feel that true gender equality means everyone is treated equally. That means not singling women out for some kind of patronizing social treatment. The point of promoting gender equality is to empower women and to give society reasons to respect women, not making men feel more bitterness by privileging them. There are enough talented women out there, so why single them out? It requires enormous management skills to have it all, but many women know and do it well. With a good salary comes an extended range of choices and abilities to manage a corporate and private life, as you can employ people to lighten the burden. Women without these financial resources have less flexibility, as well as less time to devote to their private or work life, depending on their profession. Nevertheless, it is an ideal choice and an individual choice that should be respected and supported by society. Whether you're a seasoned professional or a new recruit, as a woman, you will face a unique set of challenges during the course of your career. I leave you with 6 key pointers to establish your career if you are young and true to yourself. Number 1, be true to yourself and in your dealings. Number 2, be prepared to sacrifice what you need to reach your goals. Number 3, don't ever give up learning. Number 4, think of yourself as a brand and a project. Number 5, find a partner who supports your personal development and be prepared to share their responsibilities of a family. Number 6, don't lose confidence in yourself. You will make mistakes and things will go wrong. Identify what went wrong, could have been done better, and be prepared to explain that to the next employer. In closing, we have to accept that there are no shortcuts to success. It's all about hard work, dedication, passion, and putting in the time and effort to get the results you want. My advice to aspiring women in media is to follow your dream, no matter the obstacles. Keep the big picture in mind and never stop working towards it. This, tabled with hard work and a drive to succeed, will get you where you want to go. Thank you.
Aisha, thank you so much for that. Thank you for your input. Just a reminder from our broadcasters here that cell phones to be kept off, please. They are distorting the sound that is being broadcast at the moment. Let's move on to our final panelist. Kave, of course, as we know, South Africa is a home for all Africans across borders, and you are going to speak to that in light of the work that you have done.
Thank you very much. When I was invited to this dialogue, I was really, really excited, and I was like, oh my goodness. 11 years ago, when I walked into South Africa, I never imagined that this could have happened to me. And the reason why I'm saying that is I walked into South Africa with nothing but my bags and my siblings. We walked into South Africa as refugees. So today is just one of those amazing days, and while I was reading about social cohesion, I just thought to myself, we've been speaking about South Africa and, the major disparities that you face yourself as citizens, and we're forgetting that we do have other people living in South Africa. What does social cohesion mean for a refugee woman like me? What does women empowerment mean for a refugee woman sitting somewhere in a township in the central city center? And my response to that is starting Women Across Borders is a response to creating social cohesion. When I thought about Women Across Borders, I had a vision and I had a picture of women in different countries holding hands. I had no idea what social cohesion was then, but now I can clearly see where it's going, and creating this platform where we can engage refugee women, immigrants, foreign nationals from very different countries, together with South African women, and come together and see what is it that we have in common. The major challenge that we face as women in South Africa is we tend to think that, refugee women or immigrant women do not face the same challenges as us. But we do. We're all women. Your pain is my pain. My mother's pain is your mother's pain. When the case of Aineen Boycine came up, I organized a 1 billion rising campaign was going around on the 14th of February. I was hurt by that, and I said, you know what? I'm going to do this. We're going to go out and we're going to campaign. We're going to say, this is not right. It's not right to a South African girl being hurt like that. I wouldn't want it to happen to a Congolese young woman. And to me, this is social cohesion, sharing your pain, and sometimes we might find it difficult, the refugee community might find it difficult because of the xenophobia going around. Well, they don't want us here, they're killing us. But that's not the point. Our differences is what is supposed to bring us together. The diversity that we share is what should be the bridge, in bringing us together as a nation, as Africans, as women and men, and build upon that. And the work of Women Across Border has been amazing in doing that. I don't know if it's my personality in bringing people of different cultures and different backgrounds together, but we just seem to attract women of different social status, background, race together in getting involved in the issues that we address as an organization. And to me, that is social cohesion. And talking on the issue of women empowerment, as a refugee girl, I just think women empowerment means sending a refugee girl to school. It means sending her to a university. It means giving her access to the opportunities that, are available in the country. But although there's limitation to that, we still have to fight for it if we can. I'm trying to. There are limitations in certain areas, but I'm sure there is a way where we can come to a point and say, you know what, we can actually do this. We can include refugee women into our economy. We can include refugee women into the social sphere. But is that really happening? So that's what I want you to think when you go out of here. You might have never thought about it, but just find out, do you have refugee women in your community? Have you ever engaged with them? What is their life like? That is social cohesion. There is just no way around it. And South Africa, you have one of the most amazing democracy. You have one of the most constitution. In the DRC, I've never voted. 11 years now, I'm still a refugee, and I'm originally from the eastern region where there's civil war. So you can imagine the plight of women. And that area has been right now declared by the United Nations as the rape capital. If you can imagine what gender equality means there, it's non-existent. And I'm just one of the lucky women that have just, Sorry. Thanks. And when I started Women Across Borders, my hope was that one day I'll go back there, and make a difference. But until that day, what am I doing with the refugee women that are here? What will happen to them when they go back? And I just created that opportunity where they can be empowered, they can be socially included in South Africa, even though it's not to the maximum, but I think we will get there. And to me, this is the beginning of it. And the more we promote spaces where refugee women can be included, it's social cohesion for me.
Kabe, thank you so much for that. Thank you, Kabe, and to all our panelists. That has been very fascinating and insightful. And you've taught us something new, all of us here today. And we thank you for those insights. Speaking of a rape culture in the DRC, it being the rape capital, South Africa itself, as advanced economically as it is, and in so many other ways, also faces, as Feral Hafaji said, what we are now calling a rape culture in the country. And I'd like for us to explore, beyond merely naming it, are we dealing with it as a society and looking at the underlying issues as opposed to merely driving it from the latter end, as in what is to be done? What has led to this in our societies, and how are we going to fix it? I'll open it up to the floor. Yes, Dr. Abraham. And then ready yourselves for your own questions. I'll be taking questions from the floor.
That's a difficult question you throw at me, but I suppose sitting at the beginning here probably, what led to this culture? I really don't know. It's quite interesting oppression is something both men and women suffered of in this country under apartheid and humiliation, and which is a very humiliating experience actually. And for us Africans from outside South Africa, we cannot even comprehend it because we have not experienced that. We try to. And I imagine somehow the oppression suffered by the African man found some kind of outlet by turning into an aggression and oppression towards the women in his society. Whenever, I know this terrible example, but I was told, in these terrible countries where you have torturing as an institution, you know how they train torturers? They torture them first. And they say people who are tortured make the best torturers. And there is something probably there about men suffering and passing on their suffering to somebody else. That's what I probably can think of. Why in South Africa? Because women's position in most of Africa is not fantastic, but I think South Africa stands out as with a high percentage of crimes against women, assault, etc. It is very high. Gender really here is a major issue. We are not angels, but we are slightly better off than here. And I think this trauma maybe affected psyche of men.
Cyril, you mentioned the example of Anine Boyson that made international headlines and headlines here at home. Is there a symptom where we merely focus on something while it's happening and then we tend to veer for our attention wanders off to the next big tragedy?
Nick, I've tried to study this, and I think that after apartheid, we really want to just be a party nation, realistically, let our head down and not really think about the ugliness in our society and its dangers. So on AIDS, you saw us almost completely turning our face against the outcomes of that pandemic. And I see us doing exactly the same thing on rape. So we'll be shocked by Anine's rape. But really, since then, every week on page 2 of City Press, we carry a rape map. There have been incidents as bad, but they haven't caused the same uproar. I think we get outraged annually, and we know all the things we should be doing. There's many people in the audience who can speak about that. But my view is we've chosen to turn our face away, and maybe it's this generation who's going to make us look hard at it. Huh?
All right, thanks, Aisha.
I think I agree with Ferial there, definitely. I think that the focus almost needs to change in terms of what the priorities are. And a lot more insight. I think we've got a lot of insight, and there's been a lot of programs and definitely a lot of work being done in terms of learning about the issues. But I think that just maybe the focus is where the issues lie, changing our focus.
Yeah, one of the issues that came up when I held the rising around Anine Boyson was the women that came asked me, what can we do? We rose, we're going back home to our normal lives, but what else can we do? And I struggled to answer that question, but I just told them, find the nearest shelter to you, find the nearest woman who's being affected next to you, and be supportive to that, or get involved in that. And whenever there's an opportunity to rise like this nationally, do that, because we all can't go to Cape Town and hug Anine Boyson's mother. So being practical and being involved in what's happening around you, I think, is more important. Yeah.
Okay, let's open it to the floor and get some questions from our guests here this morning. Any questions for our panelists who have kindly shared their insights here this morning? There are roving microphones, I believe, that will be doing the rides. So if you could please raise your hands by way of demonstrating that you have a comment to make or a question to raise with our panelists, please do so now. I can't see the rest of the room, so we have a question to our left-hand side there. Could someone please take a microphone to the left-hand side of the room? I don't know if there is one there already. Is there? Or if you could come closer to the side, thanks. And we will just share our microphone, I think. Thank you. Come closer so we can all see you and hear you make your input. Thanks.
Hi, good morning to you all. My name is Pasuzana Malema, and I'm particularly directing this to you, the young lady on the left. When we're referring to social cohesion, I want to just confirm that that is not something that you're feeling as a refugee. Some of us are South Africans, but we still feel that in-house here. I have a young lady today, a white lady there. She's believe you me, she's my daughter-in-law. Okay, she has a daughter with my 14-year-old. He's now 17, my 14-year-old son then. But we cannot be with the child because of the social cohesion problem. We can't even see the child. She's been forced to adopt the child, to give the child up for adoption. So we're saying there are problems that we need to, voice out and need help. And I'm glad to be invited to this forum today so that elderly can just advise us on how do we now make people understand that social cohesion is important. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay. Okay, we have a question on this side of the room. To the left. All right. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kwanele Asante Shangwe. I'm a social activist, and my heart goes out to you, Gele. Thank you for your bravery. And this is for Farrell and Nikiwe. I liked what you said, Farrell, about how we are a party nation. It is very hard in this country to have support for grassroots work that is sustainable and impactful. We seem to have very short, limited time spans. And yes, the community can stand up, rise up, go for marches. But I can tell you, a march does not make a difference tomorrow when the abused woman has to survive. The issue is around how do we as society start using the Constitution to enforce the rights that are enshrined in there on behalf of people with socioeconomic challenges. And how do we get government to start giving substantive solutions to the issue of violence against women? It is heartbreaking to forever be dealing with a woman who is shunted from pillar to post, especially after marches. How do we start these kind of dialogues to make sure that we have sustainable impact and that we really change the lives of South African women, especially South African women, especially the 90% who live in poverty?
Thank you so much. I'm going to give our panelists a chance to respond to those two issues before taking more questions.
I think that there are excellent examples that we can copy, and often it's just an idea not to remake things, but to use the wonderful examples before us. My inspiration at the moment are two organizations. One is called Equal Education, which I think did the essential grassroots work of finding out, lobbying, campaigning, and taking issues to court. The other is Section 27. So there's a whole new range of political activists who I think offer women against violence activists the full range of arsenal to begin doing what the lady spoke about.
Morning, my name is Nkateko. I'm from Dintla Community Awakening. Farrell, my question is to you. You mentioned that you believe that the next generation has quite a vital role to play in terms of facing, challenges that we're facing with gender equality and so on and so forth. But I find that our generation is most plagued with ignorance or lack of knowledge around these challenges. So I'd just like to ask, what's the role that you see the generation playing in tackling these challenges?
Okay. We'll take one more from this side, and then we'll give our panelists a chance to respond. All right. Do you have a microphone there? Do you? Not? Just come up. Perhaps you can.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Cleo Mosana. I was touched by Ms. Bolambo's input. I think when I came in here, well, the first thing I said to Farrell, I work for the Department of Home Affairs. I said one of the things we seem not to be getting right when we celebrate Women's Month, when we celebrate everything, we seem to forget about other nationalities. The focus is always about the South African women. We don't look at women refugees. And I think one of our biggest challenges is about engagement and not reaching out to each other and getting the proper networks within which we can discuss issues of common interest. And it's, as a department, we have acknowledged some of the weaknesses that we're having, but also we are trying to improve. But if we can be able to reach out at the correct platforms, because there's a combination of complexities that we're facing. Apart from having to acknowledge refugees, you also have to educate your citizens about when refugees are here or any foreigner, they're here legally. And I would like to invite you, because our minister thought about this thing, we're having a breakfast in Cape Town on the 22nd of August to celebrate the achievements made by refugee women in South Africa. And also, we want people to give us input, because in order to improve on service, you only improve by getting feedback. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. We're going to give one more question in this particular round to Mrs. Michelle. Does she have a microphone? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I actually am not going to. I'm not going to ask a question. I want to make a few comments. First, Kav, thank you so much. You made me cry. You know, some of us here, myself, Zanele, we have been refugees, and we know what it means. And I have to be honest, I felt ashamed. There was a time I was engaged with a movement, a grassroots movement with Crisis Zimbabwe, and trying to get involved in the issues of refugees. But then, you know, life is so complex. I turned to other issues. I didn't follow up. And while you were talking, I just felt so ashamed that, you know, we have been here and we have been neglected. And you are in millions. They are in millions in this country. It's not a negligible number. So just for reminding us, I want to say thank you. The second thing is, you were talking about women in the DRC. Again, for us to feel so ashamed. You know, those who have raised the issues on what you called a culture of rape, they have been all over. I mean, Americans, Europeans, everybody. You haven't heard a very strong voice of African women against that. Some time back, I tried through the African Union Human Rights Commission, which is chaired actually by a woman. I addressed them and I said, look, we have to take this issue of women in the DRC to the Security Council of African Union. And just to cut the story short, is to tell you that it has been now almost 2 years, and we have not been able to table the issue of women in the DRC in the Security Council of the African Union. We have been trying, but we haven't succeeded yet. So it's one of those things which make you feel so small when we are talking about, you know, rights of women, especially some of us who have been labeled to be women's rights activists, etc., etc. How we have been failing, many of us. And it makes your heart very, very heavy. But coming to South Africa, I wanted to add to the discussion here one thing which has been of great concern to me. And this whole process of transformation of our country, society as such has become much more complex, but I don't think we have taken the time to look at it and to say, what does it mean in lives of women, for instance? Let me give you an example. Recently, I read that there was a report by the Institute of Race Relations, which was saying that 40% of children in this country they do have fathers, but who are not living with them. So these children are living with mothers or grandmothers, but the fathers are alive. This 47%, the fathers are alive, but they are not sharing the same roof with their children. So this tells you that the structure of family in this country has changed very, very deeply. Very, very deeply. And actually of the 47%, they say 51% are black. It's black people. So we are praising all the laws and the constitution, etc., but we don't look and say, what is society has been changing and what are the responsibility? I don't want to call it a burden, but responsibilities which are on the shoulders of women because of this change. We continue to produce laws, etc., as if we have the traditional family in which you have a father and a mother and children together. We don't really take into account that the family structures has changed. This is one part of changing. But the other one is those of children who are living with grandparents. The family, for them, it's completely different of the other family. Yet you have a parliament which is discussing issues in terms of the traditional, what we call traditional, customary law. And now they are discussing, for instance, which they call traditional courts. These traditional courts, I don't know whether women sit in those traditional courts. Because in this tradition and customary laws, women are treated as minors. They don't have a voice where decisions are being discussed and made. So in one sense, you have a constitution which protects women, which says all these kind of things. Society is changing completely. And even worse, you have a parliament which is to look at these issues of tradition in a very traditional way, which has nothing to do with modernity. It has nothing to do with a constitution which is based in equality for everyone. So this country is confronted with contradictions which we are not looking at. We are not even. So I wanted us to say, when we think of women, we have to think of the different generations of women. What we're told there about this child, you know how many hundreds of thousands of young ladies who are coming to Johannesburg, going to Cape Town, going to Durban, to big cities on their own, who are trying to make a living, and some of them studying. Even in our universities, if you go to issue of gender violence within our universities, Mo, you were saying that we are having much more success. That's true. Numbers are changing, and that's very positive. But what is not changing is the human relations between men and women. What is not changing is the societal, change is not taking place. So I think we need to celebrate numbers which are changing. We need to celebrate Ferial, you're right. I mean, there's a new generation of women today, and it is going to be interesting to see what is going to happen, I mean, in 20 years' time. But while we celebrate that, we have to look and say what we have to do to change human, I'm saying human first, human relation between men and women, and to put this in small pieces for us to understand. We can't say just tradition and leave it there. I think it is much more deeper than that. We need to understand that and to build our young people in understanding and acceptance of equality between a human being who happens to be female and another human being who happens to be a male. That is where I think, together with all these numbers which are changing, etc., that's where the core issue is. Because, I'm sorry to be long, because we know even women who are highly educated, professionally very, very successful, they live in abusive relationships. So it's not only the issue of education, it's not only the issue of being independent financially or professionally. There are deep, deep, deep human relations which are not changing. And it's not in South Africa alone, it's all over the world. One of the biggest challenges today is gender violence wherever you go. So that is the issue which I wanted to raise for us to think. And now I'm going to turn to you, Prof. I think these debates have to continue. The foundation was doing this regularly, and then we said, well, no, it has to go to community dialogues. I think the Nelson Mandela Foundation has a responsibility to continue these kind of dialogues. And I want to look at my sister. And I'm sorry, Zanele, I'm going to put you on spot, and I didn't consult with you before. But you started, as a first lady of this country, you started a movement which you call the SAWID, if I'm correct, which brought women, which was bringing women of all structures. They were rural and urban, they were educated, not educated, professional, not professional. It was really the face of South African women coming from all walks of life. And that is not happening anymore. You don't have to be, no? Well, at least I'm not aware of. So because you are the one, because you are the one who started, I just want to encourage you, Sisi, please carry on. You have to do that. We need that space. We need that space, and very, very strong and loud. You know, we don't have any place where you talk about women's issues without being in politics. Actually, I have to say, those who are in politics, I'm sorry to say this. I mean, they do everything expected to debate issues of women. All of them, including the ANC. They're not doing this. So I think you need a space which is absolutely independent, a space in which all of us, we can feel we have a stake independently of the political colors, of social structure, whatever, we can talk as women. And so I put here two people on spot. One is Mrs. Sanel, as I said. Second is Prof. for us to continue. And now to you, Ferial. I want to sit down giving you another. You know, this country, like any other, we don't have what we call equal work, equal pay. We don't. And as I said, they are very, very professional women who are very, very successful. But not always they get the same salary. Maybe the two of you there, because you are in the media and you are very strong and you have been doing extremely well, help us to really go and see where is it where women, despite being educated, professionally competent, and very good experience, they are not getting the same salary. So we also need to have that place where equal work, equal pay in South African society. Thank
you. Okay, we have, we'll take two more questions.
My name is Vanessa Perumal. I'm so emotionally charged. So much has been said. Your plight in Rwanda and people being raped. You know, and yesterday Dr. Mo Ibrahim put such a big statement out to the world's media. And he said the world looks to South Africa for leadership. And he congratulated South Africa and he said they're the most empowering country in the world to have females as leaders. So I don't know whether to be embarrassed or to be happy that in 20 years in South Africa, some of us wouldn't even know where the DRC or Rwanda is. Because the narrative that Fariel speaks of in social media and media is never told. We never use the media effectively in this country or across the continent to unite the 54 countries. We are our own worst enemies. We never tell our stories properly. We put us in a position that ensures that we are entrenched in slavery, not only from each other, but from Western and European countries itself. And so even as I myself have put myself in human rights activism to change the narrative of Africa, I think it's incumbent that we support each other so that we can talk about your rape and being the central rape country in the world. We're so bogged down in corruption in our own country. We're so bogged down in following male leaders that we forget about the plight of the woman right next to us. As a mother of a boy child also, I demand leadership in both sides. How do we balance that? So I'm just asking media houses I'm a journalist first before I'm a human rights activist. Let us work with intentionality to change the narrative of Africa. I think it's important that we offer solution-based dialogues, that we challenge our editors. Every time there's a woman leader and there's no change, what does it help us to have another woman leader? Before we used to say behind every successful man, there's a woman. I'm scared to be part of the generation. Behind every corrupt deal, there's a woman who kept quiet. So I think those are the narratives I'd like to see. My name is Vanessa Perumal. I'm reading an Africans for Africa narrative. I'm a mother of two from Actonville, Benoni. I have a license with the Festival of the Desert. So people in Africa are so isolated. You need help, but we don't even look at you. And so I'm appealing to South African women. Let us focus away from us only. Let us use the media channels in ways that can unite us.
Okay. Vanessa, thank you so much for your input. We'll take one final question for this particular round. The young lady over here. We'll have a microphone here, please, right at the front here. The young lady seated has been waiting for quite a while. Let's give her a chance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
My name is Kimberly Malope. I'm an 11-year-old motivational speaker. I'm the founder of The Hand That Gives. I've taken it upon myself to travel from one province to another, educating young girls about the use of sanitary pads, hygiene, industry, and HIV and AIDS. Dr. Mo, it pained me yesterday when you said that only 2% of women are in agriculture. According to Start Engine Google, the 8 Millennium Goals, 2015, we as Africans are working hard towards a common goal, which is eradicating poverty, infrastructure, and so on. However, there are still kids in rural areas who goes to school under trees and are suffering from hunger. My question to you is, how do you then define gender equality in social cohesion? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay. I think we're going to get a response to that and all of the other issues raised by Mrs. Michelle as well about the complex nature of what is happening in society and the lack of change. Fariel and I show a direct challenge to you to lead the charge when it comes to equal work and equal pay. And I think beyond just Professor Ndebele and Mrs. Mbeki is the issue of how do we have these discussions? Where do we take them forward? And on a national scale, and how do we drive buy-in from everyone in participating and coming up with solutions as well? I'm going to put that almost as a closing for my panelists to give their responses collectively. I'm sorry we have run out of time. Dr. Ibrahim.
Here you go.
First, I think really I want to thank our sister Graça for the wonderful intervention. And First time I hear you for like 2 years now, maybe last time I heard you, you're doing Gavi in London, and Africa misses you out actually. There's a wonderful contribution. I just want to say maybe one or two things. Yesterday I commended the African government because, South African government, because you have a high women representation in the cabinet, in parliament, in, parastatus, etc. That's wonderful. But that can also give a false picture of reality. Don't forget, we have a woman actually running Bangladesh. There is a very strong woman running India before that. Pakistan was also run by a woman. The position of women in these three countries, I think, is not really fantastic. So having some few women in the leadership up there doesn't mean really that things have changed in the country. And I'm very surprised. I mean, you talked about equal pay. I didn't realize that is a situation. There is a problem here in South Africa. You have the most wonderful constitution. You have all these women in parliament and all these women in cabinet. What they are doing if they don't enforce that? And that's I think I didn't realize that this situation is there. And I think you guys need to go and picket the parliament, or I mean, that's out of question. How we can let that happen?
Okay.
Stop here.
Okay, Ms. Michelle, who can say no to you? So in a year's time, I think we commit that we'll get the work done, but then we have to hand it over to women in South Africa to take the Equal Pay for Equal Work campaign ahead. As to the young person who said, so what can we do? I see many, many young people already doing wonderful things, not sitting back and waiting like the young lady over here. And if I can give you one answer, many young people say to me, and I suppose that's our generation's fault, we're not interested in politics. I suppose that's because 3 million young South Africans who can't find jobs, political leadership's not really working for them. And I do think it's for them to take a page from the book of Tunisians, young people in Spain, in Greece, I would say Egypt, but that's not such a great example in this week. To really, it's all out there for you, and it is up to you to do the work, but we do hear your cries. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Michelle, again, really appreciative of what you said. I think we'll definitely make it a concerted effort. Myself and Ferry will definitely start the work towards equal pay. Again, very touched by what you said about our constitution and the way in which we're following a constitution of rules and rights, or ways in which we tackle a society that's not necessarily traditional. I think we do that very much in the media landscape as well. We have an ideal to which we speak to, and an ideal of what we think, or what we think a family is. So I'm very touched by what you said in that way, and you've definitely made me think in terms of the way in which we're broadcasting every single day. So thank you.
I'm sorry to make you cry. I didn't mean to. I think what I have to say in closing is just, it's up to us individually to go and build South Africa to what we want it to be, what we really want it to be. It's up to each and every one of us sitting here, and seeing young people like this rising up, it really inspires me. To see, she has a passion, she has found it, and that's just, that's her calling, and we all have a part to play in building South Africa, and I think I'm playing mine right now, and yeah, thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time and for your input here this morning. It's been really worthwhile, given us lots of food for thought, and it builds the ground, the foundation for us to build on these conversations that we definitely need to continue having in South Africa, with, of course, a solution in mind. And with that, let's call on Selo Hatang, who's the CEO of the Nelson Mandela Center of Memory, just to wrap up for us this morning.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Nikki. I think I need to, I don't know if it was a secret, but Nikki is not feeling well, but she did a good job, and it tells you how strong women are. The fact that she's still standing up and she's not feeling well. Thank you very much for doing this. I think I also need to declare another secret. I was not told if it was a secret, but Mo Ibrahim was actually intimidated by you. He told Prof and I last night that, oh, I'm going to have to address 200 angry women. So I don't know how I'm going to handle that, but I'm going to try. So you did well again. I want to thank the panelists who are with you for, again, making such lovely inputs. And I'd like to take on Ferial to say that I think we should respond to Mama Shell's call together. So we would like to then join that call, and we would like to join the course with you. So we can then give her feedback in about a year about the work that we've done jointly on this one. I think every time I listen to Mo Ibrahim, I get new definitions of social cohesion. And I want to just pick up on 4 pillars of social cohesion. As I've been listening to him, you must know I've spent so much time with him now that I think by the end of tonight I'll be thinking more. So inclusiveness, diversity, values, and access. That those 4 pillars are the ones that make it possible for us to claim, even just to claim, that we have a socially cohesive society. And I think it's not enough that we just say the words, but that we must do more than just do that. And I think there are a couple of things that I'd like us to note. Can we claim to be a socially cohesive society when we have women who are paid less than men for the same kind of job? And I would say no. Can we claim that we have a socially cohesive society when the women cannot walk freely on the streets of South Africa, never mind in the DRC? That you fear walking freely with your dog after a certain hour. Can we claim that without fearing that you'd be harmed, even raped sometimes? So can we claim that we are a socially cohesive society when refugees fear xenophobia in our country? And when they are women, they have to even lose their identity. Just you lose who you are, that you can't even claim that you are from the DRC for fear of reprisal as a result. Can we claim that we are a socially cohesive society when girl children cannot complete school because they've been impregnated by an older man because of lack of resources, that they have to get money from this older man and they get impregnated? Can we claim that when at the end of the day there's a culture that a child cannot complete school because of some cultural impediment that tells you that you can't complete school? At the end of the day, as Mo Ibrahim said, that social cohesion is about, at the heart of social cohesion is about ensuring that people have dignity. And I want to say what I said on Friday again, that Benjamin Pogrant in his book, How Can Men Die Better, talking about the life and times of Robert Sobukwe, he says a man can forgive you for stealing his money. He can forgive you for stealing his wife from him. That's if he loved her enough. But one thing that he won't forgive you is for taking his dignity away from him. And I think it's something that we should be empowering women with on a daily basis. At this point, I'd like to say that we are challenged. We've been challenged by this group here. And Mom, we want to reassure you that dialogue has never died at the Nelson Mandela Foundation. And we'll continue to do it. We'll continue to do it not as talk shop, but that we'll take action, inspire change, and make sure that we build a socially cohesive society through Mandela Day, through dialogue. Let me finish off. You can see that I'm so obsessed with Mandela Day. Well, that's how the Prof said, that's the measures of me getting a bonus, so I have to always just go back there. I want to thank the following people: the Freedom Trust, Freedom Park Trust, the SABC for being a great partner, the City of Tshwane, ably led by Margaret, who was actually a staff member of the Nelson Mandela Foundation. And then from the Nelson Mandela Center of Memory, I'd like to just thank my team again. I think I stand proud here because of Daniel, Yase, David, Lutando, Lee, Z, and Molly. And to say that without you, it wouldn't have been possible for us to do what we've managed to do. So let us remember that it's time that we take action, inspire change, and make every day, on a daily basis, that we build a most socially cohesive society.
Thank you, Selo. I believe lunch is served. Have a good afternoon. Take care.